Hello and welcome to Ruggles Roundup. It's the portion of our Elevated Mission podcast where we talk about all things sports. We're super excited to bring this episode to you. So the question, the topic of the day is pressure rate the most important stat correlating to actual wins in the NFL?
I mean, the pass game is the most important part of the offense in today's NFL, so that seems to correlate with what offenses want to do and trying to stop what offenses want to do, getting after the quarterback. Seems like a perfectly easy correlation there.
Yeah, in with offenses doing so much passing and it being a passing league, well, here's the stats, right? Last year, 11 of the 14 playoff teams in the month of December were the top-rated pressure teams in the NFL. The only exceptions to that was the Bills, the Eagles, and the Buccaneers. None of them made it to the big game. And even them, right, if you go back before December, Eagles would have been on that list as well as one of the top pressure rate teams. And with the Buccaneers, Todd Bowles, knew the skills and skill sets of his players. And so they didn't have the ability necessarily to put continuous pressure on the quarterback. So he's very good with, blitz packages and bringing pressure on quarterbacks at specific times within the game to try to make that happen. So even with those other teams, you see some things that you go, well, they did use pressure in a significant way. And you just see even in the playoffs. So these stats those are getting to the playoffs, but even within the playoffs, you see the pressure rates really increase from all these teams, in those games, and in particular in those crucial moments like the end of the game in the fourth quarter, those kind of things.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that was one of the reasons why I thought that the Chiefs were able to play so well in the Super Bowl was for a majority of the game, we watched them neutralize those very, very talented DNs in Nick Bosa and Chase Young. There was times where they made big plays, but they're some of the best players in the NFL. So good players make plays, but they did way better job than I expected at limiting those guys and giving Patrick Mahomes the amount of time to be able to work over the middle of the field, find his favorite target, Travis Kelce, and even get to guys like Rashid Rice and McCole Hardman.
Well, as we look at the NFL draft coming up here, and there's so much conversation and so much talk about these young quarterbacks. Yes, super talented draft. If you took the last 10 years, probably, many of these quarterbacks would end up on your top 10 list of quarterback prospects of the last 10 years. But there's a lot of good defensive players coming up in this draft as well. And, maybe teams need to put their eyes on how do we get pressure, especially up the middle of that defensive line into those quarterbacks' faces. And maybe that is as important or more important than getting it right at the quarterback position.
Oh, yeah. As we've kind of moved the quarterback position to a more mobile position, you've seen the ability to pick up blitzes kind of degrade a little bit. Not that they're terrible at it. Some of the best are, you still got Patrick Mahomes who can read a blitz very, very well. But because they're always trying to get out of the pocket, they're always trying to, avoid that pressure up the middle. You don't see as many guys being able to do what Tom Brady did for years and years. And that was put defenses in a pickle where he got the ball out so quickly that you had to send blitzes. As soon as you send blitzes, he picked those up instantly and throw it right over top of you. And so a lot of young quarterbacks are not able to take advantage of that as much as we've seen, as we have had so many, staple veterans at the quarterback position leave over the last 5 to 10 years and be replaced by these young guys. Some of these young guys, I'm hoping to start seeing them pick up those talents. I felt like this past year, I really saw Patrick Mahomes pick up that talent as he became an elite pocket passer. And I'm hoping to see some more of those guys so that we can maybe see the pressure rate not nearly affect the game as much. But in the young, talented QB market that we're in, it definitely has affected these quarterbacks big time. And it's going to affect these young quarterbacks that are trying to get into the NFL.
Absolutely. And just for folks out there listening, the pressure rate, if you do not understand the nuances of that stat, it's getting to the quarterback in 2.5 seconds or sooner. And so, like, Ian, when you were talking about Tom Brady, I think he averaged, I could be wrong on this, I think getting the ball out in 2.1 seconds. So again, even at high pressure rates, he's getting it out almost a half second before the defensive line that basically just demolished their offensive lineman in front of them and just went right through them. He's still getting it out. On average, he was getting it out faster than they could get to him. And so that's what you're talking about there. I just wanted to kind of give folks kind of what that means.
And kind of going off of the involving of the game is we're seeing a lot more Aaron Rodgers types where they hold onto the ball, they scramble behind their tackles, they move the pocket from side to side, and they hold onto the ball longer than what we saw with the Tom Brady's, the Drew Breeses of the world that we had in the NFL at one point. And so I think some of those guys are going to evolve and become that. Like I said, Patrick Mahomes, I thought became that. I think one guy that really needs to become that is Josh Allen. I think he's a guy that he relies too much on his legs when he gets pressure in his face too often. And that's going to just, I want him to have a long, super successful career. And, you know, whenever you get pressure in your face, you decide to take off with your legs. That's going to beat your body up for years and years. And so I want to see that evolution from Josh Allen's game. And I think if he can move that Bills team from being a playoff failure most years as they get maybe second round boots or first round boots. I think he can move it into competing for those Super Bowls that everyone always predicts the Bills to be there, but they just can't quite make that step.
Yeah, I think Josh Allen, he kind of reminds me of a 80s, 90s kind of quarterback, you know, stand in there, take the hit. Yeah, he'll take off and run, but he'll take a lot of hits even in the pocket, just to get that ball off at that, you know, that long ball that he sees, and he's got the cannon to throw it, you know, but as these new quarterbacks coming into the NFL, as we look at them through the draft process, we'll be doing a lot of talking about them. Some of them you're going to see they're getting the ball out once the snap hits their hands. You know, their rate is slow comparative to this 2.5 seconds that is the pressure rate for the NFL that they're trying to hit, you know, on getting pressures in the quarterback. Well, you better be mobile if you're going to go past that 2.5 seconds. You better be able to extend the pocket, you know, be able to move within the pocket and do those things, or you're going to take some punishing blows. And you know what? You're going to end up punting the ball and or losing the ball, because where does a lot of fumbles happen from the quarterback position is when they get hit, you know, so, or errant throws where as you're releasing the ball, it isn't a sack, but you know, the ball goes and it doesn't go to its intended target because the follow through isn't able to happen.
Mm-hmm. And this all goes back to having a really talented defensive line is one of the most important things in the NFL right now, being able to get after that quarterback that's trying to extend those plays. Because once they start extending those plays, it's impossible for those DBs to stay glued to those ultra speedy wide receivers. They're going to get open when you have the ball, when you can scramble around for 5 to 6 seconds finding your way around the pocket. And so getting the pressure on the quarterback, absolutely the most important defensive stat when it comes to winning, and maybe one of the most important stats in all of football when it comes to winning.
Yeah, and probably one of my biggest shockers from the playoffs was when the Ravens actually allowed Chris Jones, the Chiefs, you know, pressure artist, to get involved in that game when they only rushed the ball 6 times against the Chiefs in the playoffs, where they averaged like 25 to 30 rushing attempts a game, and just kind of a strange turn of events there in the playoffs where they only rushed 6 times, and then you just it's like you plattered up just a great meal for Chris Jones to be able to then go get pressure, on Lamar Jackson and not allow him to feel more comfortable in that pocket.
Oh, you're playing right into the strengths of that Kansas City defense, too. We watched it in both the Super Bowl when they played the Ravens. Going away from the run game was the worst decision for both those teams in the playoffs because they are excellent coverage corners. McDuffie and Snead, were some of the best DB play I've seen in a playoff series since watching football. It was very, very impressive. I think they only let up maybe 1 touchdown throughout this playoff series. It was incredible how glued they were to their targets. And then they were able to get pressure consistently with Chris Jones. One of the best sack artists, and just getting pressure on the guy with those big hands. He's got that tall body that can makes you have to move the pocket a little bit to find those lanes to throw in. And so against that Chiefs defense, it's a great example of how they were able to win by getting pressure, and why run game is actually something that I think is super important to stay true to in the playoffs, because I think the 49ers lost the Super Bowl because they went away from it. And I think a lot of the reason why the Ravens got so blown out in that matchup was due to getting away from that run game.
Absolutely. So, guys, when you're looking at this next NFL season, watch those pressure rates for your favorite teams, because if they're up at the top of the league, they've got a real good shot at being one of the top teams and getting into those playoffs. Well, thank you for watching and listening to Ruggles Roundup on the Elevated Mission podcast. Make sure if you're on YouTube, you click the subscribe and you click the like button. We love that you're out there listening and watching us talk about all things sports. We'll see you next time.